Hey, Guoba here. The vignette in a cup event is out and maybe has already been completed by some of you. I'm here today to go through the 4-star selector options one by one. I'll be assessing their value and pros and cons as a first pickup at E0. Then we'll look at their most promising eidolons to look for any checkpoints you might want to meet. Like and sub if this helped, share to anyone that might need help, and let me know below who you're going to choose and why. Thanks, and let's begin. Our very first new 4-star was Yukong in 1.1. She is an imaginary harmony unit that utilizes her bowstring stacks to buff one ally or even two with very high attack percent and crit buffs. However, she does require annoying speed tuning, and delays or slows can ruin how you sync with your team and completely mess up your buff timings or even render her useless. If you need a new harmony unit to buff your teams, it might be fine to pick her, but at E0 I don't value her that highly except perhaps in pure fiction, and Hanya is also available in this selector. Her E1 and E4 aren't necessary to pick up if this new copy enables you to do so. However, her E2 lets you take advantage of better energy rotations, but I would only get this if you are already planning on using her. Her E6 is a very nice quality of life eidolon, no longer requiring speed tuning in a solo DPS team. And it even lets you go for a basic spam playstyle. You could pick up her E6 if you want to try her out but haven't had the chance to. It will make your first experience much nicer. Now, since Hanya is also a harmony and also available from this selector, we will now check her out. She offers very easy to obtain hypercarry buffs but can even buff multiple DPS too. She has fantastic SP generation whilst doing all this as well, so your second buffer can spend more SP, or your 2 DPS can both skill spam if your sustain is also very SP positive. Her buffs, however, aren't as strong as Yukong's, but they do come with an easier application. She does have some annoying issues like the SP generation not being perfect, but she's comfy otherwise, and she can enable your DPS to run no speed much like a Sparkle. Hanya is a very solid buffer to help kickstart your account before reaching limited harmonies. Her E2, E4, and E6 are all nice checkpoints. E2 enables an even higher ultimate speed buff for your carry. Her E4 makes autoplay more of a breeze and lets you get permanent speed uptime on your carry without problems. Finally, her E6 is more damage, but E4 is definitely a better checkpoint over E6. Luka came out as a single target damage over time powerhouse in 1.2 with the release of Kafka. He is all about destroying one key enemy, but they are ideally physical weak. This is because of his high break potential with his toughness damage, vulnerability debuff, and bleed detonations, with bleed being a very strong break debuff. He can whoop a physical weak boss's toughness bar and subsequently repeat those big physical bleeds thanks to his enhanced basics. He is really fun, but not good into content outside of low enemy count physical weak stages. We also have Bootail coming in 2.2, who is a physical hunt, and hunts also specialize in blitzing an enemy. We will however get the stream preview before this event ends if you do want to wait for this weird edge case. With Luka, his E2 can enable more enhanced basic attack generation, and with his skill into ult you can have 2 back-to-back enhanced basics, both detonating bleeds. Other than that, his E6 is massive for continuing his break playstyle with high detonation percentages. His E1 and E4 give him damage percent and attack percent buffs, but we don't really look to abuse his non-break damage. Again, we got Guinaifen in 1.4 as another .4-star, so let's check her out too. Guinaifen applies burns, detonates them, and gradually applies a vulnerability debuff to burned enemies, giving a universal boost to the whole team's damage. With Resolution Light Cone on top, she becomes a universal debuffer and damage amper. Now, she isn't going to outperform a Pella in SP generation and team boosting, but she's a more damaging version of Pella with more debuffs, which may be useful for a unit like Ratio or for enabling the Pioneer set. For dot teams, she's also great too if you don't run the Exodia, Kafka, Black Swan, Raw May team, and she's a much better fit in most content over Luka as she can sort out AoE fights. Even against non-fire weak enemies, her permanent and AoE fire kiss stacks are great for her dot carries damage. Just be careful of her weak base stats, she might need some HP and defense. Her E1, E4 and E6 are all great. Her E1 is big for teams that require debuff and mounts as it applies another debuff. This also lessens the effect hit rate requirements of allies, which double dips for ratio synergy. Her E4 fixes up her rotation a bit now, dropping to a 4-turn 1 and not losing out on skill points. Her E6 is her best as it increases her talent's fire kiss stack by 1, now enabling a 30.4% vulnerability debuff at max to all enemies. In 1.3 we were welcomed with 2 new Quantum Sustain, Fushuan and Lynx. Lynx is a very nice sustain option that can still solo sustain in endgame MOC from what I've seen. She doesn't have the incredible sustain power of her quantum buddy Fu Xuan, but her cleanses and utility are cool, and she can even provide a niche in the form of aggro increase. A problem she has is her heals are a bit on the weaker side and she has to compensate with small but consistent continuous healing. Her buff duration also isn't that long and you don't want her to spam her skill on your destruction ally every turn to keep it up, so it's a bit weird. Anyways, her E2 is massive for utility, giving a free debuff resist for your skilled ally. Other than that, I'd say her E1 is great for her sustained power. The attack percent boost on E4 is negligible and the max HP increase on E6 only helps out Blade damage-wise. It can help sustain a bit with the max HP boost, but it's not necessary in my opinion. Now we got the very young Gallagher recently with Acheron's banner. You get the drill, we are comparing the two sustain options. Instead of offering defensive utility, Gallagher looks to increase our damage and apply debuffs. This can be amazing for units like the brand new Acheron as well as Ratio, and he is our first E0 healer that can debuff in his kit, which carves an immediately strong niche for him. He lacks some emergency sustain if you don't plan accordingly though, but with eidolons he scales much better than Lynx. He does have problems with super fast enemies though due to his debuffed based healing that Lynx doesn't have, but his SP generation and sustain itself is much stronger. Finally, he has a single target cleanse tied to his skill with his E2, whereas Lynx has a full party cleanse on ult. So Gallagher's is much better for emergencies on a specific turn, but Lynx's can be crucial in certain fights if you save her ult. His E1 is massive and can let him easily build to 100% F-res, making enemy debuff chances against him drop to 0. His E2 is essential for unlocking his true sustain power by allowing cleanse. It also nullifies the need for another cleanse if the small F-res boost does its job. Finally, his E4 is another massive power spike for him, giving him much easier sustain power. His E6 is not necessary to pick up though. We have 2 4-star left, and they are both weird DPS and also destruction, how fitting. First off, Xueyi from 1.6. Now Xueyi is a hybrid break crit DPS, meaning those very weird random break attack crit pieces can go on her just fine. She does very high toughness damage and has nice front-loaded and back-loaded damage. She unfortunately requires many different stats due to her kit's nature and isn't very easy to build and make work. But this also means she can kind of run with any harmony due to the stat boosts they all provide. And when she does work, she is a bunch of fun and pretty strong. I also hope one day we get an entanglement detonator for her. Her big power spikes are on E4 and E6, but the former grants a large damage boost for both parts of her kit. And E6 drastically increases her follow-up frequency, as well as allowing for some sick combos with some break efficiency. E1 is a decent power increase too. Finally, Misha is a DPS with sub-DPS thingy that can also pseudo-sustain. He can be an Ice Weak DPS alternative to Jingliu from what dedicated Misha enjoys have shown me. He's all about stacking up ultimate hits to unleash a deadly barrage of suitcases that can also apply debuffs and even freeze. I mean, who knew suitcases could do this? The fact that his kit is very unique means he's a pretty cool, pun intended, unit to pick up in case you're confused and don't care about 4-stars. Since maybe you'll want the one specific thing he does in the future. For eidolons, they all offer decent damage increases, but his E1 and E6 by far the most, with his E6 also offering some nice SP refunding. His E2 helps out any playstyle of his and provides another debuff which is great for the Pioneer set on him. So if you're looking for a buffer unit, prioritize Hanya if you need a more SP positive one that works right out of the box and offers strong hypercarry buffs. Yukong would be better if you're looking for dual DPS teams, perhaps a pure fiction buffer, but only if you are really dedicated to your team's speed tuning. If you want a sustain unit, prioritize Gallagher if you pulled Acheron or use Ratio or perhaps break DPS, and Lynx if you use Blade or Clara or Mono Quantum. Outside of these units and any future units like them, well then Gallagher offers more sustain and SP, but trickier healing management, whereas Lynx is nice and comfy and chill to use. If you're looking for a dot unit, Guinaifen is your best bet for her universal damage amping power and AoE dot application. She can work in many more scenarios than Luka. However, if you want break fun and have problems with some physical content, he can help out. Finally, for a crit DPS, you can prioritize Xueyi if you got the gear for her, or Misha if you need that ice weakness fulfilled. Xueyi is a very good alternative to Xueyi, whereas Herta is harder to pull off, but of course she's insane in pure fiction, so you can always try and let her carry both endgame content. Finally, if you are in the endgame and pulled a ton of limited units and don't truly need any of these units, then I'd say the most fun unit to pick up is Xueyi or Gallagher. I hope this helped any puzzled trailblazers. Remember, if you are planning on doing pulls on banners before the event ends, wait for them before picking. Thanks to my amazing YouTube members, thanks for watching and have a good day.